Over the course of the last few years, I have grown to where I am making over $300,000 a month, and I'm on a mission over the next few months of trying to get to $500,000, $600,000 a month. And here is how I got into this position. Here's how I got to where I live a badass lifestyle. I drive nice cars. I do what the fuck I want. I go where I want, and I live life on my own terms. And if you're not on this trajectory of getting to where you're living my life, let's decompose that inside of this video, and let me break down, tell you guys the story of how I got to $300,000 a month. What are the things that I went through to get here, and how you can apply it to yourself if you have the right mindset going into this. So here's the thing is, first of all, I used to have so much insecurity when it came around seeing people with nice shit, when they had nice cars, when they had nice watches, when they did cool shit with their lives. It rewired my brain, and then I would look at myself, and I wore these like Vans that were like dirty as fuck from like 2 years ago because I couldn't afford to buy new shoes. And I would look at my shoes, and I'd be like, man, this, like, I can't even afford to buy a new pair of shoes. And then this person is driving a Ferrari or driving a Lamborghini, and you know, they have some hot girl in the car with them, and it made me feel really insecure. I was very envious of that person, and it pissed me off. That shit should piss you off as well, because if someone else is able to go and live that lifestyle and you're not able to live that yourself, where's like, why are you not on that reality? Why are you not on that trajectory? Now I see people where, you know, they give up, they get too comfortable, and they're just like, oh, that's not possible for me. There was one day I was getting in an Uber over to the airport, and when I was in the Uber, the guy was, you know, I took the brokey Uber, as Andrew Tate would call it, and it because they wouldn't let me book the nicer one because of where I lived and the time of the day and stuff like that. And I get into this car, I'm riding with this dude, and he's talking to me about how, he's like, did you see the new Prius? And I was like, what about the new Prius? Because he saw, like, you know, we have like a McLaren and my GT at my house, we have a Corvette, we have like really nice cars at my house. Picks me up from there, and he's like, dude, I can never afford any of that stuff. And I was like, okay, why not? He's like, oh, you know, because I just, you know, like, that's impossible for me to do that. And he's like, but have you seen the new Priuses? They look like the Lamborghini Aventador. And I was like, it's that day I was like, I am never, like, there's other occasions that happened as well, and that guy smelled really bad. Like, he hasn't taken a shower for like over a month or something, it seemed like. And you know, for a lot of reasons, I'm not taking normal Ubers anymore. And part of it is those beliefs are toxic. You know, it's not that I'm not too good for that stuff or anything like that, but I don't want to surround myself with that. I feel unwelcomed in those environments where people have very limited mindsets and everything. And so part of the story that I'm trying to tell you guys inside of here is, are you the person that is robbing yourself from the ability of even possibly creating a reality for you to be able to afford those things? That mindset that person had, he completely just blocked it off and didn't leave a single chance or a single like gap at all for opportunity to be in his life. He's like, nope, this is who I am. I live this life. This is the only direction that I can live. And it wasn't, you know, oh, you know, I would love to build it. Like, I would love to do that. I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to do whatever it takes to go live that lifestyle and to have those cars. Because he was a car guy. He wanted it, but he took that experience, he took that possibility of him being able to afford those things and robbed it from himself completely, and wouldn't even allow it be a single possibility for him to have those nice things and be able to go do the things that he felt really proud of. And so you want to ask yourself, what is there things inside of your world that you are robbing that experience from yourself? And that was one thing that withheld me more than anything on this journey to getting to $300,000 a month, which was, I had to believe that I was able to possibly make $300,000 a month or make $1 million a month. And, you know, originally it was like making 10, 20 grand a month from the internet, and so, or from my own business and from my own things. And so it's like, do you believe that's even possible? This isn't some sort of woo-woo like manifestation or any of that weird shit. It's just, if you don't even think, you don't even believe that it's possible or it's even a reality for you, you might as well just cut it off. It's impossible. But if you allow yourself to be like, oh, what if that is possible? Start going down this thread of, okay, so I see, you know, there's this person that's this, you know, like living this lifestyle, etc. How can I, like, if there was an opportunity that arose, I would hop on it immediately to go live that lifestyle. And that's kind of what I started doing. Is Then I started to kind of, they have a term for it scientifically. It's called your RAS, your reticular activating system. You know, biologically, we have this thing to where it's like once we start thinking of things, we start seeing it everywhere. It's like they have another term for it is the Berminov phenomenon. It's like when you drive a blue Ford Focus or, you know, a white Mercedes GT, you see these things everywhere. As soon as you start to kind of own one, or you're really involved into that thing. And the same works for money, the same works for watches, the same works for, you know, wearing nice things and doing cool stuff and traveling to places. Is you start, like, once I started traveling these places, like going to Bali, Indonesia, and going and traveling through Europe and Costa Rica, when I started meeting people, I realized everyone freaking travels everywhere. Or at least the people that I run into, like, everyone travels places. I would bring it up, like, oh yeah, I went to Costa Rica or whatever 5 years ago, you know, like they had their own experiences. People that I talk to everywhere I go, they have travel experiences. I realize everyone travels. Same with money. You know, like once I started kind of getting into watches and everything, I started seeing, like, I started like going into these places and they're all fucking sold out. You can't even buy a watch at most of these places. It doesn't make any sense. There's so many people with the money to be able to afford a watch that most, like, you can't even buy them. Which, growing up, that made no sense, because I grew up, I lived in a trailer. I saw my parents lose everything. You know, I thought money was the most limited resource and was only reserved for the elites, like only the, you know, like the people that were in charge and in the government, stuff like that. I thought, you know, in order to have a supercar, to have nice things, you had to, you know, you had to be lucky in life, you had to be born with it, or, you know, you were doing very like dirty business, or, you know, you were stealing money from people or selling drugs or something like that. And then once I kind of shifted that mindset, you know, that's what I grew up with. That's just what we were trained when I was going to school and being around these other people. The kids that had the money were either, you know, it was their family money, or, you know, they were just, you know, they were selling drugs or whatever. But then once I started meeting people that were successful in their careers, I remember my first mentor. His name was Colby Lampman. You can look him up. He lives in Idaho. He's someone that really inspired me a lot. He had, at the age of, I think, 31, 32, he scaled his real estate agency up to where I think he had 75 agents when I met him, and he was doing like $300,000 a month. And he worked, you know, for 10, 12 years of becoming a real estate broker. And he was like the best in Boise, Idaho, in the small town that I was going to college at. And, you know, he found, like, kind of, he had all these different mentors in his pathway, and he was able to get to this point, and I was able to learn directly from him. I found a way to provide value to this guy, which was, you know, he had so many agents, he always needed more properties, or more prospects for his agents, for people to buy and sell houses. And so I would send him any leads that I came across that I couldn't flip or whatever. And he ended up, due to this relationship, he ended up taking me under his wing and mentoring me and showing me the ropes, showing me, you know, things. And then it got to the point where, you know, we were looking at different properties and stuff. And I remember very vividly, he showed me his bank account and showed me how much money was inside of there. And that changed my perspective. Seeing that much number, like that big of a number on an account, on a checking account, I was like, whoa, you know, this is real. And he was very casual about it. This was like normal. This was regular. It was just money. It had no purpose to him other than it was just sitting in an account. He needed to do something with it because it was just sitting there. So we flipped a couple houses together. We got some other people in when we needed more money, if we needed it. And that rewired my brain dramatically. I'm here in Boise, Idaho. You know, it's not like I'm in freaking LA or Miami or anything like that. I'm in a tier 3 city, tier 2 city. You know, but at that time there wasn't even 1 million people that lived in that city or the surrounding areas. And seeing this guy in this environment being able to, you know, pull out $300,000 a month, which who knows now how much he's making. I hope he's making $1 million a month at this point. You know, I hope he's like just absolutely crushing it, which he probably is. He's a very smart guy. But, you know, seeing that this guy, and this wasn't even in like the city, we were in the outskirts of the city, we were just in like a small little town, and I saw how much money this guy had, and I realized how many people out there are making so much money. And I realized, you know, this guy was like, all love to this guy, but he was kind of like, you know, a little bit quirky. He was a little bit of a weirdo. He wasn't like anything special. It wasn't like he had any sort of crazy degree or anything that he got. He was just a normal dude. Like, he had wife and kids, and very normal guy. He just was very particular about his business. Other than that, he was very successful. And so that rewired my brain. And then over time, with all these, you know, slowly over time, I've accumulated these, like, just as you accumulate cash into your bank account, I accumulated all these experiences and all this data of all of these people that have, you know, these exceptional lifestyles. But when you're part of the exceptional lifestyles, you see it everywhere, especially when you go to places like right now I'm in LA, or if you're in Newport or some of these different places, just this is just here in the span of like an hour radius. You go to places, Miami, New York, Texas, Seattle, and then you travel to other parts of the world. There is money everywhere, and you realize these people making all this money are no different than you are. And so as soon as I started believing that, oh, I can do it too, there's nothing necessarily special about them that I can't be capable of. Especially some of these people, they weren't even that smart. They're like, I was smarter than a lot of these people, and I'm not even that, like, I got good grades in school, and I always kind of knew how to play the game of school and everything like that. But when it came to I wasn't like a 4.3 GPA or anything like that. I think I got like a 3.5, 3.6 GPA in school, and which is pretty good, but I wasn't smart. I wasn't good at school. Like, I wasn't great at school. It wasn't my passion. I didn't get good grades. And then when it came to school, like when I went to college, I failed a bunch of my classes and stuff, and then I ended up dropping out. And so I'm not that much more smart than these people, and I had to realize that. And so now, you flash forward, let's say now over the last like 6 years, I've just slowly kept stacking these experiences and all these data points, and just realizing that I don't know jack shit. And even at this position that I'm at now, where whatever, you see me, you follow me, I have followers, and I've had a lot of success at this point. At the same time, it's very menial. It's very scratching the surface, and it's a drop in the bucket of a water droplet in the ocean of what's even out there. I think they say like every day there's $500,000 printed by the treasury, and there's over like 500,000 people that have a net worth of over $30 million. There is so much opportunity out there. And so it was believing that. And so now, how did I actually get to $300,000 a month? It was believing that it was possible first. It was meeting a bunch of people that were doing $1 million a month and realizing they are not that much different than me. They all shit the same. They all do things. And when I didn't have that experience, I would read books of people that got these success. I would read like Made in America by Sam Walton. I'd read Think and Grow Rich, or more specifically probably like, the Robert Kiyosaki, his book, which I can't think of it right now off the top of my head, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Reading Grant Cardone books, reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, what was the other one? How to Win Friends and Influence People. Reading all these books and taking the experiences from these people that were, rich in their times, and taking the lessons. The Richest Man in Babylon was another book, and taking these lessons and then applying it to my own life, or at least reading them, and then kind of like, internalizing the lessons of these words of wisdom from these people that have done things far greater than I have at the time, and learning from these experiences. And so it was kind of like creating an environment for myself with all these kind of with words and books and people that are dead, and taking their inspiration and then applying it to my life. And then also, as I started meeting people and I started going to these different, like, I'd go to like weird little hotel events, and I would go meet real estate developers and people flipping houses that were worth the tens of millions of dollars. I'd go to these little hotels, there'd be like 20 of us. I would shake hands with everybody, and I'd get to know everybody. You can look up like local, like little meetups. I would do that. I would join random Discord servers, find different people. I would go to, I'd go do like weird local event stuff that had nothing, like I didn't really want to do real estate, but it was surrounding myself with people that were crushing it in those industries that were, just like little fish in the great ocean of like the industry and opportunity out there. And so it was believing that it was possible, meeting lots of people, shaking lots of hands with people that are doing something with their lives. There's no individual one person that I met that changed like entirely everything, that like is the reason I'm successful. But, it was these stacked of like all these different people that I met over time. Obviously my first mentor helped out a lot, but then also just, I was destined to have success, and I really believed in it myself. And then now at this point, once I kind of believed in it, it was finding the thing that was for me. So I tried every business model out there. I originally started with real estate, as I mentioned. Then I started a YouTube channel, or originally how I started was sales, then real estate. And then I created a YouTube channel about real estate. And that, with real estate, I got to where I was starting to make like 10 grand a month. It was very inconsistent. I remember my first month I made like 8 grand or so after like 3 or 4 months in. And then, it was very hit or miss as my income. I think I made like $50,000 over the span of a year or so. Nothing crazy, but like enough, like, to start making money. And then I tried everything. I tried like Instagram theme pages. I tried doing, you know, drop shipping weird products. I remember I did like this charcoal powder. I was going to do Amazon FBA. I got to where I was about to order stuff and I ended up going the drop shipping route instead. I did like these bags for bicycles. Like I did like weird shit, like trying to sell different stuff. And then my YouTube channel, I fell in love with doing that and teaching people real estate and learning the entire process and everything. And like the process of YouTube and building these assets that are videos that go up for a very long time and get lots of you know, that just people kept watching. And I just fell in love with that process. And so then what I started doing is then from there, you know, I tried, like I did e-commerce in the midst of it. I was flipping still a few houses. And then I had my big break with YouTube and I got to where I started doing $1,000 a day with what are called, back in the time, they were called like cash cow YouTube channels. Now I prefer the terminology of faceless YouTube channels and YouTube automation and stuff. And so I started doing that back in 2019. And that's when I first got to my first like 20, 30, $40,000 months. I was just really good at that. My experience basically accumulated over from all these past experiences, and I was able to apply it over into YouTube, and it was able to really help kind of like scale everything that I learned. And like I was able to like be effective immediately in that marketplace because I knew what it took. I already had all the experience. I had all these lessons and all these experiences of failures and everything over the span of like, let's say 18 months or 20 months or so. And so all this to tell you, then what I did is I just got really good at that. I just got really good at YouTube automation, getting like scaling lots of channels. I had many that, you know, I got to $70,000 at one point in time. I lost it all, got down to where I was making like $5 grand a month or so with my channels. And then I scaled it back up to now where I have my systems of where I do very like long-term branded, you know, things like building a portfolio, more known as like kind of they call it a publishing company in the industry. And, you know, building it from the foundation of the YouTube channels and then going out to multiple platforms, doing brand deals, you know, building different communities off of these YouTube channels, outsourcing the entire production and just building like a legitimate business. It's actually really boring what I do, to be honest. I don't really do anything that exciting. And that's the thing about business is like, it's nothing exciting. Like, especially when you meet all these people that are like making hundreds of millions of dollars, billionaires, they have a lot of times the most boring ass business. And I had to learn that. It's like, you know, if you want to go make a ton of money, it's probably not going to be from anything exciting. It's like, you know, maybe there is like novelty in when you're starting a new business at first, everything's new to you and you have to learn all these lessons. But ultimately what's going to really scale you that I learned is doing the same shit over and over again for the span of like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and just getting really good at these little kind of nuanced things that come with each individual business. A great movie to watch on this is called Jiro Dreams of Sushi. I was watching it last night with my girlfriend. She's getting into business. I'm teaching her a lot of stuff. And, you know, I was showing her this movie and it's this movie, like go watch it. It's on Netflix. It's a documentary from 2012. And this guy has been making sushi for, I think it was like 70 years. It's like the most expensive at the time of making this movie, the most expensive Michelin star restaurant. This guy, I think it was like $600 to do dinner with this dude, and they only had 10 seats. So you had to, like, at the time of recording, I think you had to book a month out. I think now you have to wait like 2 years or something to get a table at this restaurant with the guy. And yeah, it talks about like how literally he does the same thing every single day and how he's just over time, nobody can compete with him, nobody can charge as much as him, nobody has as good an experience as him because he does the same thing every single day and he gets better at it every single day on the things that he's been doing for the past 70 years. He's still every single day getting better at this thing. And that's essentially at this point what has really allowed me to scale to bigger numbers, because the hardest part is getting to 10, 20 grand a month. It's just sticking with something long enough, finding the right opportunity for you to get in and doing something that you know you're somewhat good at. And then at that point, once you kind of figure that thing out and once you get 10, 20 grand a month, then it's all about kind of just like doubling, tripling down and getting really good at getting better and better at those things that are there. And so for me, when it comes to YouTube, I've done, you know, 30, 40, 50 different YouTube channels at this point. I haven't edited it up, but when you go to my account, you'll see there's like a lot of, when I go into YouTube and I look at all my channels, there's a lot of them there, a lot of different failures, a few successes from those failures. And it was just doing it over and over and over again and trying to fail as much as I possibly can until I got to the point where I came with this kind of like way of and process of me doing things now. And then from there as well, then it also became to the point of like teaching other people what I was doing, because I realized there was a cap in scalability of how many channels I could make. And, you know, to build really profitable, successful channels, you have to build a brand, and that takes a long time. And I really am passionate about building my personal brand. So I started doing that. I've been doing the same thing every single day when it comes to my personal brand for the past 3 years. I changed maybe some of the distribution methods, like the social media platforms I post on, and some of the processes of how I like testing different processes of how I bring people through the system. But ultimately, I've been doing the same thing for the past 3 years, and I've gotten really good at it. I've become one of the best. At least I'm better than 95% of people in this industry that I'm in, because I just showed up and I just cared about getting better every single day. I barely ever drink, I set really strong goals and targets for myself. I'm extremely disciplined. I get up every single day at 7 a.m. and I do the same routine every single day of the things that are the most important that move the needle forward, like in the different aspects of the business. And I got really good at it until I was able to get so good that I was able to hire somebody that was better than me at each of these individual processes. And that is what allowed me to really scale, because then now I'm very high leverage, I'm very high level, and I have people that are way better than me at each of the different aspects of my company, other than the thing that's going to grow me the most and what I'm also the best at and what I'm good at and what'll help me lead the direction that I am. And so in this process, I discovered my strengths, I discovered my weaknesses, and ultimately I discovered what I like and what I don't like. And because of all these experiences, life became really easy for me. I'm very extremely blessed now at this point, to where I am able to grow really quickly and be really good at my job and help so many people out in the process, and help so many people become millionaires, and help so many people quit their job, and help so many people get to their first $10,000-$20,000 a month, helping people get to $100,000 a month. And I can't wait to help people get to $1 million a month as I go through that journey and get better at learning that process. So that is how I got to $300,000 a month. I know it's not very nuanced tactics. That's not what's going to get you rich at all. It's going to be individualized to the person. And then once you kind of figure out kind of what you like, there's videos that are an hour long that you can watch, and it's very detailed, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to do. For me, I just went and paid for those things. I spent over $250,000 in coaching. At first I didn't have $250,000. I spent $500 and bought someone's course. I would spend $3,000 to get this person's one-on-one attention to tell me exactly what to do. $10,000 here, $1,000 here, $2,000 here. Every dollar that I ever had, I would put it towards someone else helping me to get results, because I believed that I knew that I was destined to go make a ton of money and to become really rich. And I knew that $1,000 in the grand scheme of things wasn't going to mean anything. I knew once I was doing $1 million a month, that, because I believed I was going to be able to be there, that the $10,000 that I invested didn't mean anything. It was just such a little small thing in the grand scheme of things. But if anything, it was more important then, earlier on, than it was later on, that $10,000 I was invested. And so I knew that money, that money in that time when I had barely anything, and I had to give it all up to, not give it all up, but I had to invest it all into the thing that I believed in, into the coaching or whatever it was, or the mentor, or, inventory, or hiring production, or whatever. I was all in every single time that I possibly could, because I didn't want to have money if it was less than hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. Money was worthless to me if it wasn't coming in large quantities. And so every single dollar that I ever had, every single credit card that I would get access to, I would max that shit out. I would spend everything that I possibly could, because I knew that on the other side of all of that, it would set me up for the ability to actually be able to become really rich and really wealthy. The amount of times I spent everything that I had, and I had to pay bills and rent and everything. The amount of times that it was embarrassing because my credit card would get declined when I was going and taking, my girlfriend on a date, and I would have to actually use her credit card. But I knew that on the other side of all of this, that it was all going to be worth it, and that was going to be the thing that, those were the moments that I was going to reflect on, and that were going to laugh and would make for great stories. Because I knew I was going to be doing great things inside of my life. There are parts where it was probably a little bit delusional. There's parts where I was a complete dumbass, but I was so all in. I was so delusional in those moments that I was going to be very successful, that I would do whatever it takes in every single instance. I remember coming home and telling my dad that I invested, I think it was $3,000 into a program, or $5,000. And it was all the money that I had at that time. And my dad was pissed. He said, "Why didn't you invest that into college? And why did you put that into this?" He was very upset with me. That $5,000 or $3,000 that I invested, I can't remember the exact amount. I turned it into $8,000, I think 3 months later. And then that $5,000 investment, let's say it was, over the span of the next year, it made me $70,000. And so that investment that I used, that knowledge I was able to apply, I made so many connections. I was able to meet all these different people. And then with all that money that I made, I would reinvest it to figure out how to make more money constantly. And so until it got to the point, you know, to where I can't even like invest the amount of money that I make. And now I'm looking for creative ways to be able to kind of do things with this money, because I knew those days would come. I would be all in every single month. And if you watch interviews from anybody that's done very successful things in their life, they lost money every single month. They would take every money that they didn't even have and they would apply it towards their thing and being able to grow themselves and build themselves. That's what it takes to get to $300,000 a month. That's how I made $300,000 a month. That's how you can go and do $300,000 a month. I can't tell you about $1 million a month yet. I'm not there yet. I have a kind of a clue, figuring it out. I'm not there yet. I can't teach you about that. But to get to 300 grand a month, even if you're making 30 grand a month, take everything that you have, put it back in, figure out how to grow that thing. And that's what I did. I wasn't profitable. I didn't ever keep money until I got to past $100,000 a month. I think it was until I hit like $200,000 a month. And when you see people, you know, a lot of people on here have, you know, the Alex Hormozi boner or whatever you want to call it. Alex Hormozi, he talks about it in his videos. Like, he didn't have money until he was making 300 grand a month. Like, that guy was like, he said he was cash poor until he was making 300 grand a month. And I didn't understand what that meant until like I was going through it and I was like, yeah, this is weird. You know, you're making so much money and you're not like, you don't have any money. You can't afford anything. You have no money to spend. You're asking your friends to buy you food. You're having to make freaking peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for weeks on end. And it doesn't make any sense because you're like, this is more money than I've ever seen go into my account, but also more money than I ever thought possible was going out of my account, because you're a freaking dumbass trying to figure out how this all works and how money works because you didn't grow up with parents that had money or anything. But what I will say is going all in, believing in yourself, showing up every single day, being not afraid of failure and realizing that those are the lessons and the journey of what it takes. That's what it took for me to get to $300,000 a month. If you're looking for some sort of blueprint, some tactical thing, I don't have that for you here. There is nothing like that out there. Here's how to get to $5,000 a month. And then here's how to go from 5 to 20. And then here's how to go from 20 to 80. And then here's how to go from 80 to 300. And then 300 to 600. Those are out there. I have some videos on this Twitter. Go look at those. How I got to $300,000 a month? I believed in myself. I went all in. I did whatever it took. And I told myself that. That is another point. I told myself I will do whatever it takes to become successful and to become rich. And it was that declaration of me saying I will do whatever it takes to get to this goal or to live this lifestyle, that from there I dropped the ego. I didn't care about asking dumb questions. I didn't care if I already knew everything. I realized I had to dump everything, all of my knowledge that I had, and shut up and listen to the people that were further than I was and do what they told me to do. And any opportunity that I found that would give me a competitive advantage that wasn't cheating or stealing or lying or, killing anybody or any of that stuff that that were super against my values, I would find every opportunity and every little advantage that I can, these little 1% things. And these little 1%, is like a little strategy here that I would use like this type of thing over here and this little strategy. And I kept compiling all these little things from everywhere, and things that I learned for myself, little things I would pick up from little videos like this or interviews. And I just kept stacking it. And I didn't care. Like, I was just a dumbass. I would just be like, okay, cool. Like, I don't care if I'm stupid and doing everything wrong, but I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to do whatever I can to like apply and learn from these processes, like learn from this experience. And when I said I would do whatever it took, I just kept doing that every single day, and I would go all in. I didn't care if I had to tell my girlfriend, hey, can you pay for dinner? Because I actually couldn't afford it. But I wanted to take her on a date. I wanted to let her know like how much I valued her. I would have her like give me her credit card so I could pay for it, even though it was like her money and stuff sometimes. Or, I would do that for gifts for my family, just so that, and then I would have to tell people that everything was okay when, it was probably kind of like scary inside. And I had to, I had to pretend that it was like everything was okay. That's what got me here. And that's what can get you there too. So that's what I got.